So this is my Legere 47 that's been set up. We decided to this is our gaming table usually, and it's become my craft table lately as well. We decided to put it on the corner of the table just to see whether or not it would work for me or not. I'm thinking that I would like to probably move it more central in the middle of a table. I ended up actually buying recently secondhand, I'm not sure if you can, oh, right here, a Workmate, what is it? Black & Decker Workmate table. This one is $225. I got it secondhand because people do things like crank-ins, for example, where they collect together and they do sock knitting together, learn from each other and so forth, and I'd like to do that at some point. Also, I'd like to get back my gaming table, so at some point I'm going to transfer my knitting machine over to the work table there. My husband's still putting it together there for me, bless him. So basically, what I was told when I ended up getting my CSM, again, CSM is Circular Sock Machine, was to have patience, which is not one of my major virtues, I have to say, to have a swear jar, and I'm like, okay, because it's a bit of a steep learning curve. Now, I've done the manual circular looms, and I've done hats on that, I've done a video on that, I've done some slipper socks, so I've got the basic gist of what it is to do on those large looms, like the large plastic circular looms. So I don't know that my learning curve is as steep as the average person, but it's still steep enough. I have found that as I've practiced, thank goodness I have a support mechanism. I'm on a couple of Facebook sites, for example. I have a person, a dear person that's helped me through buying the circular sock knitting machine, and of course every time I have a problem I end up calling her, and not calling her but messaging her, and she's really great at being able to help me through it. I have another contact I have actually in Ontario, because I'm in Canada. There's not a huge as far as I know, there's not a huge amount of people in my city that do this. Again, there may be, and I'm just not aware of it, but I did want to have some sort of support network. You will get frustrated, you will get irritated by it, but I have found that I do enjoy it, right? So, if you're going to get irritated and you're going to get frustrated, you walk away. I basically have learned with the swear jar that instead of putting in, like a nickel every time you swear or something like that, I put in a piece of chocolate. And then when the swear jar is full, I walk away and I eat that, that swear jar full of chocolate. It's not great for my waist, I'm sure, but it definitely makes me feel better, okay? But you do what you need to do, but make sure that you walk away, because you don't want to walk away permanently, right? You just need a break, especially if you're tired and things like that. You're going to make more mistakes. So, don't push yourself unnecessarily. What I was told, because of course I think everybody who gets one of these machines has the unrealistic expectation that you're going to be selling socks in 2 weeks or something like that. And you know what? I doubt that. And I was doing it mainly because my husband, for a man, has very wide feet, but they're size 7, and so it's really hard to find socks for him. Boys' socks are not wide enough. They might be the correct length, but they're not wide enough. The women's socks certainly don't work, and men's socks are long enough, but they're so long that the heel goes halfway up his calf, so that doesn't work either. So I thought, what, I could make socks for him that actually fit properly. How nice that would be, instead of just having tube socks that have no heels and things like that. So I thought, why not, right? So, and it looked pretty cool, and I wanted to just try it for myself. So it was recommended that I practice each part of the sock until I get it down pat, and then move on to the next part of the sock. The heels and the toes are generally the hardest part of the sock that you're going to get frustrated in. They are basically the same thing. So once you've got the heel down pat, you're going to have the toe pretty much down pat as well. Haven't gotten to the toe yet. I'm still practicing on the heel. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to show you some of the parts that I have got down pat so far, so that you can start practicing them on your CSM machine as well. Okay, and every CSM machine is slightly different, but generally overall they tend to be the same. This here is the ribber. I haven't even started trying to use the ribber at this point. I'm just using the basic machine itself before adding complications to it. Okay, so let me, well, actually before I reconfigure it, we wanted to make sure, okay, so in a previous video I was showing you how, hold on a sec here, this is not it. Okay, so basically in a previous video I showed you how to use a cone winder, and I wound this cone here. Generally speaking, you want to have some sort of waste yarn, and so by waste yarn you want to have something similar to the yarn that you're going to actually use for the sock in terms of thickness, so it's not, you know, screwing up in terms of your tension. And you want to make sure that when you put basically this mast, which is hard for you to see from this angle, basically it has 3 holes. Now this is the original from the machine, and these holes do not have any slits. So when I put the thread through and I want to change to a different color, I'm literally cutting my thread and I'm threading the next color. There is a slotted yarn mast that you can buy. I'm in Canada, so there's a company called CSM.com by the name of Dave Lord, who seems to be, you know, well known, I guess, across the CSM world. I just recently bought actually a slotted yarn carrier to try out. Sorry, the yarn mast. So you've got the mast here, and then you've got the top part there that I bought. Also, I have the original yarn carrier where the thread goes through. And again, you know, if I want to remove it, I've got to cut it because it doesn't come out. So there is a slotted yarn carrier that I picked up as well. At some point, my husband's going to help me install them both, and I will probably do a video on that to show basically the difference between the two. Okay? So generally speaking, my antique knitting machine came with, and I don't know if you can see it. Let's see if I can. Okay, so it came with a yarn. Oh, move that out of the way. So it came with a yarn winder. Okay. And it came with bobbins for it. Now I haven't used this yarn winder at all. I've just been using the cone winder that I've got. But basically, you put the bobbin on here, and I don't have there's a rubber. I bought the original one came with a leather strap, which kept falling off because it's old, and the newer ones are rubber, which I haven't put on. I put it on, but you're supposed to take it off so that it doesn't stretch. And so basically you would just, you would turn this would turn, and you would obviously wind accordingly, but I don't need to use that necessarily. But I have found that this is quite useful, because if I have, for example, my cone here, I put it here, okay? Now, because I've put it on the corner of my desk, if I have the yarn coming up through here, it doesn't come up exactly off properly. It gets caught on this thing, which I find problematic. So I actually put this on the floor just below, and then it comes up no problem, and there's no tension issues or anything like that, okay? If I was more central, then yeah, absolutely, I could have it coming through here and this being on the table. And a lot of people, I think, actually end up doing that, okay? So let me put this through here onto the ground, all right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put the yarn basically through here, okay? And I'm not sure if you can see. Let's see if I can advance. This basically is your heel spring. You would use it obviously when you're doing your heel. It will increase whatever tension you happen to have, okay? So, oh, I lost my yarn here. There we go. So I'm going to put it through here, okay? And then basically there is a little bump with a hole through it that the yarn will go through, okay? And I'm going to put it through this hole here, all right? And then there's a clip, okay, and I'll give hopefully a side picture. There's a clip here, and then this will go under this clip, okay? So you can see that, all right? And then it's going to go through this front yarn hole here, okay, and go downwards, all right? So that basically will be used in time for me to actually start knitting, okay? And of course, I still have to put it through the yarn carrier that's down here, okay? So let me reorient the camera here. Now, before I continue on, you're going to notice that every CSM basically has some sort of tension thing, okay? And there are many videos to be able to figure out what tension it is. Every yarn will use a different tension, and you probably want to keep some sort of logbook as to what that is. Right now I'm just dealing with waste yarn, so I really don't care where the tension is. I'm actually keeping the tension, so you can see my dial is here. It's pretty worn. I'm just keeping it basically here in the middle, okay? And I'm going to show you what that looks like, because you don't want it to be overly tight, because of course that could lead to drop stitches, which is no fun, okay? And I also don't want it to be too loose. But when you're starting to practice, looser is probably better, you know, just to make sure you don't have the drop stitches, to understand what it is. And then you can take it off your CSM afterwards and see really, because things will obviously look tighter once you actually remove them, okay? Now, we also have something called a sock bonnet, okay? So when you start, all right, I'm not sure if you can see here, okay? This basically is a sock bonnet that I bought. It looks kind of like a sock, okay? Some of them might actually have like a ring here in order to be able to hang weights from, and I'll show you the importance of that later on. Mine is just kind of closed off, okay? And this one has rings, but you can actually do one, and at some point I will do a video on that, without the actual rings, and it's just in this picot edge, this kind of like bumpy kind of edge, basically has little strings that I could have pulled out, which would be loops that would replace this. But the person that I bought this from basically is I got mine from Piper Knits, and because I did not have one when I bought this machine, I did not know how to make my own at that point. There are videos in order to be able to make your own. So you could use like an onion skin bag, for example, that's like a netting originally. The CSM that I have came with this little guy. Okay, I don't know if you can see it here. Hold on, let me rearrange here. So this little kind of spidery thing, all right, can be used basically that you put it inside, and you can actually, you thread it in a certain way, and that actually allows you to start off if you don't have a sock bonnet, for example. Now for my lessons that I'm kind of teaching myself as I go along here, I mentioned in a previous video what I'm using, and I'm using this book here by Harry Rogers. It was recommended by somebody who was obviously more proficient than I was in terms of sock knitting. I'm finding it actually, I like it a lot. It's very stupid proof, which I like as a beginner. It's got it's large print, which at my age I truly appreciate. But it also has lots of pictures. So at the beginning it talks about like what kind of machine to get, the different things you should think of. But once you're done that, it goes through all sorts of things, what causes drop stitches, and it shows pictures of how the stitch is made, for example, or you know, how to do a hung hem, and you know, if you're doing a heel, if you're doing a toe, and you know, all sorts of stuff, which I really appreciate because I'm a person that's very visual. So definitely something that you may want to consider. Again, there's so many YouTube videos out there as well to consider as well. So when you actually look at your sock bonnet, this is a 52 cylinder, which means there are 52 needles going around. I have another one that came with the machine. Guys, thank you. All right, the 72 cylinder, which will obviously have 72 needles. I have not yet used my 72 cylinder. I'm just using the 54. That's what my husband installed, and I haven't changed over the cylinder at this point. I'm just, as I said, I'm just practicing. When you're making a sock bonnet, basically, you really only need to use every second one. So this basically has a picot edge, and I've only got, because it's for 72, I've only got 36 rings across. So if I ended up putting this on the 72 cylinder, I only need to put this on every second one, okay? You do not want to skip more than one needle because that's going to cause problems with actually being able to make and pick up your stitches, okay? I can use this sock bonnet on my 54. It's going to have, technically I only need 27 rings to do my sock, guys, my cats are having governance issues today, okay? It's raining outside, and I showed them some bird videos to hopefully calm them down so it would be easy to make my video, but that clearly was not enough, okay? Anyway, so so when I do it here, what I've learned is that if I do 2 rings and then I skip 1 needle, and then I do another 2 rings, skip 1 needle, I will have some of these rings left over at the end. That is not the end of the world, okay? So what I'm going to do right now is let's start showing you how we actually put it on. I've got various instruments that came with my machine, and I bought some from Dave Lord, Chambord CSM here. And so I have one of the things that I ended up buying was getting with my, if I can find it here. Oh, here. Is I got a very, very tiny crochet needle that came with it, and it is 1.75 millimeters. But again, there are, for example, this one here, which is like a short hook. You could use, hold on, can you see that properly? Okay, so does that come properly? Yeah. So basically, you can use something like that as well. It just depends on how easy you find it. So what I would suggest is that you start at 6 o'clock. When you actually look at your actual cylinder, the first thing that was told in the book is to put certain marks down, and we look at it kind of like as a clock. Okay, so you've got your 12 o'clock, your 3 o'clock, your 6 o'clock, your 9 o'clock. On the actual machine, at least these cylinders that I have, the 3 o'clock and the 9 o'clock actually have special kind of hash marks on the actual ticks. And so what I did is I bought some like nail polish. I got some yellow nail polish because for me it would be nice and easy to see the marks that I need. Okay, so you just buy some cheap colored nail polish that's, that works for your eyes. And I marked the 9 o'clock and the 3 o'clock. Okay, and so right now I'm sitting dead on. Okay, where this is my my clock. Okay, if you are sitting, for example, on an angle, then, the 3 o'clock and all that, those hashtags may not work quite well. You may have to actually, it depends on how you're sitting in conjunction to your actual machine, okay? Why I mention that is because the crank handle down here, okay, you'll notice that if I'm sitting here like this, okay, and I'm sitting dead on like this crank handle, all right, is not a problem for me. It works really, really well. The problem comes is that later on when I'm doing the heel, there's something called, I bought something called the sweet spot, which is hooks that you put in underneath. So when I'm trying to put these hooks underneath, this is getting in my way of my hand going, give me a second here, guys. So basically, all right, there we go, all right. So if we're taking a look here, as I said, when I'm trying to put my hand underneath, this is getting in the way. So it might actually be more advantageous for me to sit this way. But the problem is that my marks are all like in a different kind of orientation. So I could still pretend the orientation is the same, okay? Or potentially, I'm guessing that you could potentially change the marks so that my 12 o'clock, my 3 o'clock, my 6 o'clock, my 9 o'clock would be here. But the little hash marks that you have would obviously not be correct. So I guess you have to figure out what works best for you, okay? So I have seen a lot of videos where people actually have the, let me just turn this here because I'm probably confusing you guys for no reason here, okay? They have so many more marks than I have. So I've just started with the very basic marks. So you want to have your 3 o'clock, you want to have your 9 o'clock, and you want to have your heel marks, okay? And that changes depending on what cylinder you have, okay? So in the book that I've got there, it mentioned if you have a 54 cylinder, you're going to have the heel marks so that you have like everything here that's in thirds is the equal amount, okay? So right now I've got 54 on this half. I've got 54, duh. I've got 54 all the way around. I've got 27 on this half, 27 on this half. And so my heel marks, there's 9 in this first quadrant, 9 in the second quadrant, 9 in this third quadrant. But not every cylinder that you have is going to work out that all 3 quadrants have the same amount. So for example, if this was my 72 cylinder, I would have 36 on this half, 36 would be on this half, and basically the 36 to divide into 3 sections would be 12, 12, 12. So again, I'm not going to have a problem. But let's say, for example, okay, in the book it says, what if you have a 64 cylinder, okay? So you've got 32 on this side, 32 on that side, 32 divided by 3 does not work out well, okay? So what they suggest, for example, is to have 10 in this first quadrant, this bottom quadrant would have 12, and then 10 on this quadrant. So there is a way of figuring out what would work well. Now again, everything is personal preference in terms of the socks that you're making. You may find out that the heel marks that you have are too narrow, too wide, whatever, and you can adjust accordingly, right? Because if this is nail polish, I mean, I just take some nail polish remover, remove it, and change my marks accordingly. Okay.